Good Tuesday, everybody. Meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center taking a look at that current Doppler radar imagery across our region with those temperatures overlaid where you do see not really any sour accent around, but that's going to change as we do look ahead here in toward the timeline. So stay tuned for the latest information on that. As it looks like on Thursday, we're going to have a chance for some strong and severe storms to develop. So just stay weather aware, and again, we'll get more into that here in just a moment. But current temperature wise right now, 81 toward Gainesville, 75 Keystone, 77 toward Tallahassee. So those temperatures pretty warm, a little too warm for this time of year, and that's going to be one of the players here as we're going to have a contrasted air masses here, and that's going to be helping to fuel some of the severe acts and one of the different parameters here, one of the different things here in play with this setup as we do look ahead in toward the timeline. So going to continue to be watching the situation carefully as I go ahead and broaden the view out a little bit. I do want to go up toward New York State right now. We do have a flash flood emergency in play here. You don't see too much rain on the radar, but the problem is the weather service in Binghamton there, it's a flash flood emergency there to 8:15 as we're talking about. It looks like gauge there causing some issues, some alarm there because it's at a record level on an inlet there. As we are seeing it expected to near about 11 feet. So the rain showers are not going to really worsen the situation, but the situation's beyond the expected imminent crest. So or excuse me, let me say that again. It's not going to worsen it beyond the expected imminent crest, but it's already a situation where we're really seeing flooding that's not been observed here before toward this area. So flash flood emergency, and that's because of a nor'easter here. As we are looking up toward the northeast, I'm going to go ahead and zoom back out here. As we see these temperatures pretty cool, but again, going to have some power outages here toward the northeast because of all this wind and rain. I know those wind gusts getting up there pretty high. In fact, as you look toward parts of Massachusetts, they're going to continue to be watching things here very carefully. Toward this area, you see even some pretty interesting banding here showing up on our Doppler radar. So a nasty situation for those folks here in the northeast as they go ahead and broaden the view back out. We're going to look off toward the west, and now you do see the next weather player that's going to ultimately impact our weather. Not seeing any watches or warnings yet, but the Storm Prediction Center in the Norman area talking about issuing a watch here soon. A couple of them, in fact. You can see what we're talking about. It looks like the thunderstorm watch can be coming toward the south there, closer to Lubbock and Abilene. But then as we get further up toward the north, we're going to have to be watching there as well. For a threat of some severe weather, maybe even some isolated tornadoes. So you're going to be looking up that way here over the next little bit as we get further up in toward the country. This enhanced risk of severe weather does include areas there as they get back in a little tighter. You can see around Abilene, Granbury, the Texas area there as we get closer toward the Dallas metro. And then as we get toward Wichita Falls, Oklahoma City, Elk City, Woodward there, Enid, you kind of get the idea. And then in terms of tornadoes, that's not what's prompting the enhanced risk tonight. So not as big of a concern. We don't have our logo red for that. We have our logo red for our local threat here on Thursday. But you do see there is enough of a threat where there is a reason to be concerned and to be watchful even into the overnight hours. You see some of these areas like Oklahoma City under this, and even further off toward the west here. Going to be watching even in toward Kansas as well. You see areas there west of Wichita and under a little bit elevated threat there. Woodward, Elk City, Wichita Falls, you kind of get the idea. And then as we pop up some more different parameters like wind, you see the wind hazard that is driving that enhanced risk, and that's a pretty big area there in that brownish color. And then the hail threat here, you can kind of see that as we get further on up toward the north as well. But this is going to be that weather maker coming into our picture later on, so just be kind of mindful of that. We're going to be watching to see how things kind of develop on the radar out here as we do look out toward the west here in this area. So I'm going to go ahead and broaden that view back out just a little bit more here as we continue to watch some situation, low pressure involved here, going to be causing some issues as we do go ahead though and give a little break here from that severe weather talk just to give you a few looks at some of those weather stem cameras. So let me go ahead and pop up the baseball grounds in Jacksonville where you see that beautiful sunset there toward Jacksonville. The temperature's again a little bit warmer than normal, but it is at least nice for now. That's going to change later on in the timeline, but just giving you guys an idea of how things do look out there as we go on over now toward the next camera. Go ahead and load that on up. There's the University of Florida in Gainesville. And then we'll now take you to FSU, of course, my alma mater, just coming off a homecoming and a big homecoming victory there against UMass. You can see here the sun going down in the west as we get further on out there. So just to get a nice shot there toward parts of Leon County. But we'll go ahead now and move away from some of our different cameras. We'll go ahead and move away from these as we kind of look ahead here in the show because there is some other action to talk about here as we go ahead and show you again what's coming our way here. And now let's kind of move us ahead in that timeline just a little bit here, folks. I'll go ahead and pop up some different things. I have quite a few graphics planned to show you here. So let me go ahead and switch on over here toward the graphics on the wall, of course, you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. Now, this is tomorrow's threat. This extends from just east of Austin and Waco, the bigger threat at least. I mean, they're technically in the marginal, but you still have to always watch for threats even in that. But the flight risk is including Houston, Lufkin, Alexandria. I mean, Lake Charles is in here as well. We have Baton Rouge, New Orleans, Mobile. So you just got to be kind of cognizant of what's going on here because we could have some tornadoes, some damaging wind gusts down here as we get closer toward the coast and instability, that shear mixing just enough to maybe cause some problems. And then you can kind of see here at the edge of the timeline later on some of this action getting a little bit closer on in toward the Big Bend region. So just going to have to be kind of watching for that because on Thursday, this is when things really come into play. You see a margin of risk for Tallahassee, Albany, but it seems like the parameters are going to come more into play toward north central Florida, toward northeast Florida. So we're talking about quite a few different areas here involved in this, and I'll go ahead even before we break down the threat. I just want to show you here even a more localized view of this here with another angle where we can kind of get down just to see where at least threats could be a little bit higher. So we're going to kind of move our map around now and see some of these on our other source because this is kind of important just so you guys know here. So we're talking about Stark, of course, in here, and then that kind of broaden us out. I'm going to start over from the west coast, though. We have Cross City, Horseshoe Beach, Cedar Key, Otter Creek, Bronson, Bell, Trenton, Gainesville, Alachua. You kind of get the idea. Stark, Lake City, McClenny, Jacksonville, going up into southeast Oregon, and even down toward Ocala, Bellevue, and even in central Florida. Threat actually could be a little bit higher down here. We'll just have to wait and see based on some model guidance indicating that, just seeing some things there that are a little more concerning down that way. But again, just giving you guys an idea here of some of the locations involved in the risk areas. So let's go ahead now and go back to breaking down the broader risk here. So strong damaging severe thunderstorms are expected on your Thursday. There is an isolated tornado threat. Some forecast models show areas towards central Florida could see worse weather, as I was hinting at. Some of our models trying to some maybe more rotational potential here toward the villages somewhere in that area. And you just want to stay tuned for the latest updates. Have multiple ways to receive alerts, of course. If there's any tornado warnings in our area, we cover so many counties, North Florida, South Georgia. We'll be on immediately to keep you safe and may just be on even more long form based on the overall scenario with this line, with this dangerous line that we'll probably be moving on through on your Thursday. And let's go ahead and give you guys a timing of that. Of course, could just have more sort of thunderstorm warnings and tornado warnings, but we're covering all that for you too. So our forecast model going to kind of break this down for us here. I'm going to put this into motion, doing something a little bit different here today. So let's go ahead and kind of watch. This is around 1 a.m., 2 a.m. You see this line. I think the worst of the storminess with this will be confined more toward the coastal areas because of the lack of instability further inland. But then as we get toward about 6 a.m. or so, you start to see more robust acts, and we'll have to see if any of this further south severe. But as we get later on in the timeline, even you see some storminess in the Gulf of Mexico, and that could end up being the big weather story once we have that daytime heating mixed with that shear. Some of this could be definitely nasty to watch as we get toward the early afternoon hours. So just giving you guys a breakdown here, that modeling. We were going from 1 a.m. to 1 p.m. hour by hour on that. In fact, let's just play this out one more time for everybody here, just to make sure you guys know what we're talking about. So again, this is 1 a.m. Eastern time. You see some storms. I think this will be kind of falling apart as it moves in for the most part, but coastal areas there of the Big Bend could have some severe weather. Definitely something to watch for. Be weather aware even overnight. But then as you get into toward to Thursday, again, further south at first, but then some of this action could get a little bit further north, maybe with some severe characteristics. We'll just have to wait and see here based on the positioning of that warm front here. That's going to be a key player, that warm sector, in terms of how high some of our different values like dew points do end up getting. So that's going to determine our severe threat here as we're looking ahead. Could even have some lingering action a little bit later in the afternoon, but eventually we'll have that cool air mass come on in to brighten the situation here across the area. So again, there's another look. You kind of see what we're talking about with that. But let me go ahead now and kind of go on over towards some of our tornado safety tips now. You can see here tornado watch would potentially be issued here. So that would mean conditions are favorable for tornadic activity and close to the watch area. So you want to stay tuned for updates. Have multiple ways to receive alerts. And a tornado warning means that a tornado has been detected using radar or spotted. You want to seek shelter inside a sturdy building. Get as many walls between you and the outside as possible. And protect yourself from flying debris, at least that potential, by putting on a bicycle helmet. That's so important here. I know the dam is so significant up toward Missouri, Illinois, and folks staying safe for the most part there by taking their tornado precautions. And they have basements in that area. We don't have basements here, so in some ways, even if the tornadoes are weaker, they can cause more issues for folks because you can't get below ground many times here. So got to be prepared. I know looking back again toward Missouri, Illinois, one of the tornadoes there, the St. Mary Chester tornado, granted it's from the same storm that was moving through there off toward the south and west, but I just wanted to say this. It's been rated at least an EF2 as moving through the St. Mary area. But again, a tornado debris lofted to 20,000 feet, and that indicates a strong tornado here, folks. What I mean by debris, this is a cross-section of the Doppler radar. This is literally what folks were able to see at the Weather Service office in St. Louis, why they're issuing tornado warnings, a tornado emergency, ultimately for Chester, because once you get the debris so high, that's indicative of the kind of damage that's being done here. Shingles, pieces of tree limbs, maybe letters being lofted into the atmosphere a little bit, and lofted to 20,000 feet, indicating just how strong the winds were, how much force that they did have with them. So significant. And I know we got late word here just a little while ago of some more EF3 damage toward western parts of St. Genevieve County, toward areas there 8-9 miles east of Farmington. So pretty nasty storyline there. But looking at this here, just wanted to kind of reiterate how significant severe weather can be. I know I had relatives there in that area in St. Mary, literally 50 feet from where the tornado was causing that damage. They're not far from that antique mall, and that antique mall suffered significant damage. So kind of telling that story, how powerful this weather setup was. This was a different low pressure, but in general, you can have low pressures here, and you have to have other dynamics, obviously. I don't want to get too far into meteorology here and confuse you guys, but again, I just want to make sure that you guys understand that tornadoes obviously can be very dangerous, and got to make sure you take those warnings seriously by getting as many walls between you and the outside as possible, putting those there between you. So just so important as we look over now toward another topic. 40% chance that a system forms off the East Coast there with a nor'easter. Power outage likely, though, in the Northeast. Massachusetts going to be seeing those numbers go up. I know it's similar, it looks like, to some other systems that have caused a lot of power outages in that area. So folks need to charge up their devices, even if we probably aren't going to get warned here, at least why it's impacting them with the wind. Got to be cognizant of what can happen. You already saw a flash flood emergency there in New York State with those issues there. So just got to be aware and got to remember to turn around and don't drown as we look ahead toward the next 7 days here locally. That rainfall forecast, pretty much all this rain here, going to be from that system on Thursday. I mean, it's really clear, folks. On Thursday, we're going to have some spots really have a deluge here. Move on through a widespread inch-type totals here around here for our region. Some of the models kind of cut things off a little toward Flagler County, maybe as you kind of look here as we get closer toward the coast. But again, that's not going to be too indicative of the severe threat. It's just about how much rain we fall on, because that first line might end up having a little more rain, but that accent later on, we get an instability, could end up having a severe weather threat. Now, some of the models showing different things, so it could change around some, but again, just trying to give you guys that early heads up. Of course, cloudweather.com/radar will have the latest. We've been talking about this threat, though, since last Thursday or so. I showed you that analog map, and you could see what was potentially going to happen, and now maybe a week later they're talking about some type of severe weather threat across our area. So got to be stay in tune for the very latest information as we try to protect you and your friends and your family. I know we have cloudweather.com/radar, as I mentioned, for the interactive look at things when we're not on, but when we're on, we'll be streaming on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. So make sure you stay tuned. Tornado warnings could crop up and pop up here. We'll just have to kind of be really watching what could end up developing here as we look toward North Florida, especially in our Florida counties, South Florida, Georgia to some extent too, but North Florida, and even maybe further down just outside of our area in Central Florida that we don't actually officially cover with, to make sure we don't get any strong tornadoes to develop there if that threat were to arise. Not necessarily calling for that anything right now, but just something to watch here. If nothing else, a pretty strong squall line will be moving through here. Unique setup as termed by some National Weather Service offices down toward the south. So got to be paying attention here. Don't want to alarm you. Just be prepared. Some spots won't get any severe weather. Many spots won't. It's in like a hurricane, but some spots they get it, as we see, and as I saw there up towards St. Mary in Missouri. 50 feet made all the difference between significant damage or maybe just having power to be out for a while, and also having some poor cell phone service. So again, 30% chance of rain tomorrow, but 90% on Thursday. It's going to be wet here, and that severe weather will be possible, as you can see indicated here on our graphic. But then behind the system, we're going to have that cool down, the coolest air we've really seen across our area all season. You do see here down towards Saturday, 49 degrees. I know that football game Friday night for Bradford High and other high school football games, need a life jacket probably out there, because this air will be something you're not necessarily accustomed to, and it could be breezy as well. So be mindful of that. That Florida-Georgia game on your Saturday, #1 Georgia against Florida. They're in Jacksonville, and maybe Georgia, Florida this year. They kind of switch it around. I've been so busy with all the severe weather potential, I haven't had a chance to check that out. Of course, many of us will be watching that accent up toward Clemson, South Carolina. Florida State up at Clemson, same time. We'll be kind of keeping an eye on that weather situation as well. Locally, though, that weather looks pretty good for that Florida-Georgia game. And then as we get toward your Sunday, you see temperatures starting to rise in the afternoons. Those lows not changing too much at first, but eventually starting to warm back up just a little bit here. As you see, 54 degrees here as we get toward that Tuesday, as we get closer to the averages for this time of year. So I'm just trying to break everything down, see what else we have for you. I know we have all these big events like Halloween night even. Don't want to forget about that either. I don't have those on the graphic because we're trying to focus on the task at hand right now with that severe weather potential on your Thursday. You got to stay tuned for updates here. Because again, many spots won't get anything really. Maybe some gustier winds moving through, and maybe a tree limb or something, or a pine cone even knocked over, and it won't be that big of a deal. But other spots could have some nasty damage. So just stay weather aware here on that Thursday. We'll keep you up to date. Let's go ahead and look at some other things before we wrap it up here. I know if we get any like tornado emergencies on that national level, we'll be breaking in ahead of time before tomorrow night, as I see if we can go ahead and take you back on over here. Let me see if I can get you guys on over to a viewpoint here. I see stuff developing on our other systems, so let me go ahead and see this real quick. You can kind of see I just switched radar a little, but Elk City are seeing some light, and this is the beginning here of some of that storminess that's going to moving in overnight, even this evening into this enhanced risk zone. So definitely some severe weather, more of a local threat, since that tornado story is lower, a local threat for those folks here to begin with, and they'll be covering that same for Wednesday. But if we really see something pop up, really nasty tornado situation, we'll come on. I'll let you guys know about that, or at least tweet about it there at Cloud Casey on Twitter. And then on Thursday, we'll be covering the severe weather all day. But full update tomorrow on that severe weather potential as we're tracking things locally, as we do have that threat here for areas like Stark, Gainesville, Jacksonville, under that slight risk here. even Ocala as well. We're going to be paying attention to keep everybody ahead of the storm system that moves on through here, that fall secondary severe weather season. Definitely having an impact here across the country this year with so many different weather stories in play, and it'll keep you ahead of all of them. Have a great night.